Good morning, Indiana. You have one hearing under your belt, and now we're in the game now. Everyone's in the game, so it's exciting. And if you hear a little bit more excitement in my voice, it's because I'm I spent significant time in Indiana. I think all of the judges this morning have spent some significant time in Indiana. I know your teacher, and I went to graduate school at IU, so in Bloomington. And my name is Tom Bonce, and now, though, I don't live in Indiana any longer. I live in Kansas, and I'm a professor at Kansas State University. Good morning, welcome. We're going to have a great discussion, and look forward to hearing from you.
Good morning, Hoosiers. Sean Arthur's here. I am looking forward to having a chat with you all and hearing where we go with Unit 6 this morning. I'm a lawyer and teacher just outside of Washington, D.C.
My name is Lawana Davis. I am a law professor at Cumberland School of Law in Birmingham, Alabama. And we will get started with a question. President Dwight D. Eisenhower said,
You might want to
Wait, Luana.
You might want to have the students introduce
themselves. That's my bad. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. Please introduce yourselves.
All right. Thank you, judges. We are Unit 6 of Team Indiana. My name is Ryan Everett. I'm the unit captain, and I plan to attend Purdue University in the fall to study political science.
My name is Aryan Desai, and I plan to attend the University of California at San Diego to major in computer engineering.
My name is Devin Jung, and I plan to attend Purdue University as well to study chemistry.
And my name is Connor Wright, and I plan to attend Indiana University to study business and political science. And we are under direction of Ms. Janet Chandler.
Okay, and I apologize for that. That is totally my bad. We'll get it. We'll get you a better. We'll get you somebody better next time. President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." Do you agree? Why? What disagreements did the founders have about a standing army, and are they relevant today? To what extent should there be an international U.S. military presence?
Civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. wrote,
Millions of citizens are deeply disturbed that the military-industrial complex too often shapes national policy, but do not want to be considered unpatriotic.
Connor and I agree with President Eisenhower's sentiments. Before 9/11, the Department of Energy and Pentagon were the only U.S. government agencies with major military contracts. Since then, the number of U.S. agencies acquiring contracts has exponentially increased.
Military manufacturers such as Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics have acquired additional contracts to not only increase current arms supply, but to also aid the military in diversifying with new technologies for cyber warfare and artificial intelligence.
A strong military-industrial complex is reinforced by the spread of military contracts with private companies across multiple branches.
Ryan and I disagree with President Eisenhower's stance. Since World War II, collaborations between military arms and technology developers with the US government has resulted in the advancement of civilian technology.
Inventions ranging from duct tape to the internet were first developed for military use. Without a military-industrial complex to ensure collaboration between the U.S. government and arms manufacturers, civilian technology development would lessen.
Our founders recognized the difficulty in balancing our national security while also protecting our rights and freedoms as citizens. James Madison adamantly opposed a large standing army and thought it would lead to further conflict, while John Jay disagreed.
Additionally, after the Revolutionary War and poor treatment by British troops, the founders were cautious and added the Third Amendment to our Constitution to prevent the military from forcibly occupying American homes. Framers also sought to avoid a dictator using the military to amass large amounts of power, which is why Article 1, Section 8 requires congressional approval for war.
Congress and the executive branch continue to debate who should control what parts of the military. Last year, President Trump ordered a strike on Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, which angered some in Congress who wanted the authority to approve such action.
Another check on military power involves who can be appointed to lead the Department of Defense. Former General Lloyd Austin was granted a special exception to lead the Pentagon.
Federal law stipulates a citizen must be in charge of the Department of Defense, which can include former members of the military, as long as they have been discharged from the military for 7 or more years, or receive a special waiver from Congress. This ensures the military protects United States citizens more than it shields itself from accountability.
Our fears concerning an overzealous military that suppresses rights of the people have decreased, although, as seen last summer with the heavy-handed uses of the National Guard, the threat remains.
In 2019, the Defense Department spent $732 billion to uphold domestic and international U.S. military presence. Since the United States is not presently in a state of war, the Pentagon should receive a smaller share of the federal budget.
The United States operates 800 military bases in over 70 countries, and some bases, in places like Okinawa, now lack strategic importance and could be consolidated or closed.
Connor and I agree the defense budget could be decreased, but we feel it is important for the United States to maintain influence in every region around the world. Until very recently, enemies were nations, and their locations remained permanent, making surrounding the enemy a strong military tactic. But in the modern era, an enemy is no longer confined to land borders. It is important for the US to answer the call wherever and whenever necessary. As President Eisenhower said,
We do not keep security establishments merely to defend property or territory or rights abroad or at sea. We keep security forces to defend a way of life.
This concludes our prepared testimony, and we are now ready for your follow-up questions.
Great, thank you. So put away all our notes as we were on the honor system here on that. So this is going to follow up on a topic that you raised a little bit, hit on a couple of times in your presentation. Last June, the highest ranking general, Mark Milley, he's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, appeared in a photo at Lafayette Square, which is only about 12 miles from my house here. It's just north of the White House. And he appeared in a photograph with President Trump after protesters had been cleared from the area. Should General Milley have appeared in this photograph or not? And are there two sides to are there two sides to him appearing in the photograph, a pro and a con?
So to address your first part of the question, I do not think that he should have appeared in that photograph because it shows a stance that the military is ready to suppress protester movements, such as the movement that we saw last summer. So I think that by him being present in that certain image, then it reflects the stance that the military is going to be able to suppress the First Amendment rights that Americans have.
I think, go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you. In accordance with what my colleague Arian has said, most military positions, and specifically the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is traditionally an apolitical position. And I do not think it was wise for General Milley to participate in the photo op with the then President Trump in Lafayette Square. However, I will say that oftentimes there's a bit of a push and pull in Washington specifically. And I would like to think that General Milley understood the risk in participating in the photograph and made the choice in spite of the risk.
Is there a situation where General Milley should have said, or any military officer should say no to the president? You know, the president wants him to appear in a photo or appear in a situation. Is there a time when a military officer should say no?
I think the picture in Lafayette Square would be a time when it'd be appropriate to say no. And the fallout afterwards demonstrates why that would have been an appropriate opportunity to say no. Because first of all, it was inappropriate for the government to use the force that they did to remove the protesters, purely just to take a photo at a church. Now, if the protesters were damaging federal property or trying to storm the White House, that would have been a little bit of a different story, but they weren't doing any of those things. And so General Milley should have said, no, thank you, President Trump. I understand what you're trying to do here, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to take part in this photo opportunity.
Any other time when that you can think of when the civilian control of the military, the military says, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do what you order. Other than that example, any other examples?
So besides the specific photo op example that we mentioned, I think just a general example is when the military or National Guard is utilized in protester movements, such as the one on Capitol building on January 6th. I think that it's important that the military has the ability to share their perspective and they know when to act in certain situations. While the president is the final say, I do think that higher ranking military officials should be able to determine whether or not they should be involved in certain civilian scenarios.
Additionally, when it comes to more political and more generally politically stanced issues or, excuse me, events, the military should not be involved because, as my colleague Ryan has mentioned, the, the area where the Joint Chiefs of Staff are, it's more of an apolitical position. So if we have, it shows our military to have a political stance if we were to be involved in these events.
You discussed the bases that the United States has around the world in various countries established during or right after World War II in response to some of the actors who were part of World War II and strategic positioning of having the United States military available in different theaters where they could respond quickly if anything arose. Those concerns are now pretty much done. We're not really at that level yet. So give me the reason why you think the military remains in Okinawa or even Germany, for that matter, for these bases. Let me hear the rationale you have security-wise why we remain there.
I think the main reason that the military maintains a presence overseas is purely because, well, I disagree a little bit with your opinion that the threat is gone or that it's receded. Russia is still very much a threat. I mean, we just witnessed the largest cyber attack in United States history, which we learned about just earlier this year, and that was orchestrated by Russia. So the threat might be shifting and changing in the types of threats, but we still need to have a presence around Russia. And we also need to start focusing more on East Asia and specifically China as they're trying to rise to become the next global superpower.
I would disagree with my colleague respectfully. I think that we have more than enough presence in East Asia and in other parts of the Eurasian landmass. I think while I recognize that Russia and China are two of, if not the two most pressing potential threats in the world today, I think the United States military is so dense in its presence in the Pacific. Like we mentioned in our prepared remarks, Okinawa alone, there are 32 bases, and I struggle to understand why some of those could not be closed or consolidated. So while I understand the need to maintain presence, I do think that it's beyond time for a potential revisiting of our current strategy there.
Another possible explanation as to why these bases are still existent in these areas is that a lot of them are being used for research purposes. One base that specifically comes to mind is Diego Garcia, found in the Indian Ocean. It's a small atoll, and the last significant operation from there was in 2006. However, since then, it's been used for only research operations, so certain locations have research opportunities that are more specific.
And in terms of the economy, having bases, U.S. bases in these areas can help to improve the economy of a certain place. So, for example, in South Korea in 1957, the South Korean GDP was lower than Ghana's, but now in the 21st century, South Korea's GDP has skyrocketed, and because of the presence of the U.S. Bases, as well as the fact that they have a certain threat right next to them, North Korea. And so that is why a military presence is still needed in some of these places, not for just security, but also for the economy.
What are the best safeguards against a too powerful military industrial complex? You're muted, Connor.
Yep, sorry.
Time.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Good work, everyone. I would have loved to have heard your response to that and to a host of other questions. We could have gone on for a long time. You did a great job as per normal and usual with your prepared statement. Was clear, it was dead on, it was well organized, and but the rubber really meets the road in the follow-up questions, and you did an excellent job of marshaling evidence and also reasoning to sort of think through your particular stance on issues. We hit you with some hard questions right out of the gate. This is the national finals. It's not. This isn't district level competition, and I thought that you handled it fairly well. That's a tricky issue. You kept on going back to the to the president using the military politically, and that's certainly a good strong position. But then there are probably also other times when it's justified for, even though we have civilian control over the military, there's all kinds of good reasons why we have civilian control over the military, but there's probably some other situations that I can think of, at least anyway, where the military would not follow an order of the executive branch. We probably don't like to talk about those things too much, but in the case of a president, maybe not having the mental capacity to make sound decisions, for example, and that kind of thing. I also wanted to explore just the growth of executive power in terms of the military, but we didn't have time for that. But overall, I thought you did a great job. You made me proud to be a Hoosier, and thanks so much, Mrs. Chandler, for all your work with these students.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I particularly enjoyed, I'll just echo Tom's sentiments, but then also I especially in a competition like this, you made some reference to different clauses and framing in the Constitution and words from our founding fathers. I thought that was helpful, especially in something like this. One thing to think about, and it's just, I know it's a balance, when you move around between different speakers in a presentation, I know it can be entertaining, but then it also, like, at times, if I'm trying to like really lock on to understanding your whole argument, there's a balance between, right, when it was shifting between different folks, because you're each hitting a different point. I'm still trying to process maybe the speaker before. So it's a balance, I know, and it's just something to think about. But I really enjoyed the wealth of your international in particular. I thought you all were very deep and interested there as well. So thanks you all, and I hope that Indiana keeps rocking it for the rest of the tournament.
I echo my fellow judges' statements, and I agree that you're well prepared and well rehearsed, and maybe even a little bit very well rehearsed, particularly at the beginning. So you may want to look at, okay, how do we transition from one person to the next? But excellent presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.